painting it.
Y'all still look near each other?
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 5:15, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is the April 15, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals. Zoning present here this evening are Howell Morrison, Chappie McKay, Robin Richards, Allison Grass, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Robert Summerfield and Craig Bennett. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by the city's ordinance to ask you to swear to tell the truth if you intend to speak tonight. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You'll signify by saying I do. Thank you. All right, we do have one deferral or withdrawal on tonight's agenda, and that is item B3 for 827 Brookfield Street in Maryville, Ashleyville. That one will not be heard this evening. So if you're here on 827 Brookfield Street in Maryville, Ashleyville, you can be excused. We won't be hearing that one this evening. Okay, so we'll go straight into our agenda. A is review of the minutes and deferred applications for previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one is review of the minutes of the April 1st, 2025 board meeting. And I do want to just make sure that we've got sufficient number of members present here to vote. We'll need 4. And okay, we do have 4. So is there a motion?
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't have 4.
We only have 3 of the members. So we'll have to defer those.
Okay, yeah, we're missing Goodwin, we're missing Huey, and we're missing John. So we only have Grass, Richards, and McKay. Okay, all right. So we're going to have to defer that to the next meeting. So that's going to bring us to A2, 8H Street, West Side, Council District 6, TMS number 463-16-03-024, Zone DR2F, requesting a variance from Section 54-301 to allow a single-family home with a 3-foot south side setback and a 6-foot total side setback. 7 feet and 10 feet are required. The owner is Brian Lewis. The applicant is Luke Jarrett and Annika Kernan. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see this property is on H Street. It actually is a through lot, so it actually has backs to F Street here in this area of Peninsula. Here you can see the aerial. It's in an existing mostly single family residential neighborhood. The applicant is asking, indicated is asking for a variance for setbacks. You can see the lot here in their pictures that they supplied. It is a very, it looks narrow here and here, but when you really look at the head-on shots, it's a very narrow lot. They are proposing a single-family detached home on this lot. Relatively modest 3-bedroom home. It will have an attic space, I believe, on a half story on the 3rd floor. And you can see, like I said, very small home on a very small narrow lot. Given the setback requirements and the nature of the lot, again, we want to see single family homes on single family lots, and believe that this is not disingenuous with the neighborhood and does meet our various variance requirements. So staff is recommending approval of this application, and we had no letters of opposition or support related to this request.
Okay, thank you, Robert. May I see the overhead aerial, maybe the GIS again? Yes, okay. So we've got residential properties on either side?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So do we have anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 8H Street? Anybody here in opposition? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, anything you'd like to say to the board?
I don't have much to add. It's a small single family house.
Can you come up to the mic just so that we can get it recorded?
Sure.
Pretty please, thank you.
You'd said you had nothing to add, you would have been off the hook.
I should have said that. Well, I don't have much to add other than it is a small, single family home on a small lot with a lot of constraints. That was pretty much it. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Sir, anything?
Yeah, no, I just, Brian Lewis, I bought the lot with the intention of building a house to live in it, so, I'm working with Annika and Luke and Synchronicity, and appreciate you guys hearing our request.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian. All right, anybody have any questions for the owner applicant? Anybody have any questions for the city? Any discussion? Is there a motion? Move approval. All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Is there a second? Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously by a 5-0 vote, and the variance for H Street. Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, we're now into B, new applications. Number 1, 10 West Edge Street. West Side, Council District 6, PMS number 460-00-00-036, Zone MU2 WH, requesting the third one-year extension of a vested right that expires on May 4th, 2025, pursuant to Section 54-962. Vested right pertains to a special exception granted under Section 54-206 on May 4, 2021, to allow a late night use restaurant. The owner is Mount Pleasant Investments, LLC. The applicant is Michael Nixon. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is a vested right request. It is the third of their statutorily guaranteed 5 one-year extensions. Everything is in order and staff recommends approval.
Okay, and there's been no changes to the ordinance that would prohibit the proposed use that's been grandfathered in?
Correct.
All right, I need a motion here.
Move for
All
approval.
right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes 5-0 unanimously. The third one-year extension of the vested right is approved for 10 West Edge Street. The next item on our agenda, B2, 35 Broad Street, Charlestown, Council District 8, TMS number 458-09-03-122, zoned LB, requesting the first one-year extension of a vested right that expires on May 16, 2025 pursuant to section 54-962. The vested right pertains to a special exception granted under section 54-110 to allow the expansion of a non-conforming duplex use. The owner is 35 Broad Street LLC. The applicant is Matthew Anderson. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is again a vested right. This is the first of their 5 statutorily guaranteed requests. Nothing has changed in the area relative to this project that would cause staff to suggest any other discussion. So staff is recommending approval.
All right, do I have a motion? Mr. McKay moves to approve. Is there a second? Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously 5-0. And the first one-year extension of the vested right for 35 Broad Street is granted. Next item on our agenda, remember that B3 has been withdrawn. That brings us to B4, 16 Charlestown Road, South Windermere, Council District 11, PMS number 421-05-00-168, zoned SR1, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a 308 square foot accessory dwelling unit with an 11-foot rear setback, 25 feet are required. The owner applicant is Gregory Gelber. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you can see the property here is mid-block on Charlestown Road in the South Windermere neighborhood. You can see that these lots are very square, which ordinarily you wouldn't think of that as a detriment. The issue here is because of the relatively shallow depth, but yet the setback requirement for the zoning and the way the lot has worked out, essentially anywhere that they try to put this ADU in their rear yard is going to impact a setback. And it's again, it's very relatively small ADU, fits within our ADU standards. The applicant is making sure that it's in line with the garage, so it's not impacting the side property, and believe that again, it's a little different because the lot is being square. Again, most lots tend to be rectangles, narrow but long, and this one is just really square. It makes it somewhat difficult to utilize the rear property for an ADU, which is again something that the city is generally encouraging as an option, particularly in a case like this where they're requesting it for multi-generational living to provide space for a family member to live on site. With that, staff is recommending approval of the request.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And do we know whether or not it sounds to me like there's no intent for short-term rental use of that ADU?
Correct. That's not a part of their request, and I don't believe it'd be eligible for short-term rental.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 16 Charlestown Road? If you're here in opposition, just raise your hand. I can see you. I don't see anybody in opposition. Do we have the owner applicant here?
Yes.
All right. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
So we have no intention of ever renting it. We're a family of 4 and just need more space. We have three letters of support through, if you want to go back to the aerial map. This property owner, and this property owner. And those are the only adjacent properties that are owner occupied. And they're all in support of it.
Great. Any questions for the owner applicant while he's up here?
Can I just ask, can you forward those letters of support just so that we can have them in the file since you made that a part of the record?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anybody have any discussion, questions for the city? Make a motion. Move approval. Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Is there a second? Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance for 16 Charlestown Road in South Windermere is granted. Thank you all. Yeah. All right, the next item on our agenda is B5, 30 Montague Street, Charleston Village, Council District 8. EMS number 457-03-02-049, zoned DR1F, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a staircase with a 6-foot east side setback, 6 inch east side setback, 3 feet are required. The owner is Kent Hogshire. The applicant is Brian Crouch Architect, LLC. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this property is here kind of mid-block on Montague with Smith Street to one end of the block and Pitt on the other. You can see here, this is definitely one of those quilt type blocks. This is a very shallow lot in comparison to many of its neighbors, although obviously its immediate neighbors to the west, I'm going to say west, map view west anyway, is about in the same situation as this one, although you can also see just with the footprint of the building. And again, this is an older part of the peninsula, has been built slightly larger in there. But in looking at many of the other lots on this block, this lot is very shallow in comparison to many or most other blocks. And so their opportunity to work with this to make the modifications to their home that they're proposing are relatively minor. You can see the house here. So you can see on the aerial here on the, what would it be, the left, you can see the proposed site plan with the stairwell. On the right, you can see the existing site plan. So this is an area that's already currently occupied by a storage area. It's kind of a built out area, although not exactly the same as what the ultimate build out with the stairwell will be. But for that reason, and because they have the support of the neighbor immediately to the side of them where this would be most impacted by the proposal, staff is believes that satisfies part 4 of the test. The shallowness of the lot, we believe is its unique circumstance. Here you can see just renderings of what on the top it would look like and what it looks like now. You can see that in the bottom, you can see that that structural element is already there. And for those reasons that I've stated, staff is supporting this request.
All right, thank you, Robert. What is that space now? Is that currently an enclosed like shed area or
Storage area, yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, is there anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 30 Montague Street? Anybody here in opposition? Just raise your hand. Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant? All right, Mr. Crouch, anything you have to say?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions for the city? Any questions for the applicant? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The variance for 30 Montague Street is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B6, 58 Line Street, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, Council District 4, TMS number 460-04-04-026, Zone GB, requesting a variance from section 54-317 to have a 3,273 square foot restaurant with 0 parking spaces 30 spaces are required. The owner is 630 King LLC. The applicant is S Arch Studio, John Sullivan. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is right at the corner of King Street and Line Street here, as you can see on the aerial. This is an area that is seeing quite a bit of development and new development coming. There will be a new hotel immediately across, well, catty-cornered across the street. There will be a number of different uses on the old Post and Courier site. Courier Square Phase 1 is underway now. So very much an area that is in transition and is in transition in such a way that it's not intended to be as auto-dependent as it has been maybe in the past, given that this is in the kind of the Upper King area. Here you can see it on the aerial. This is also in the area of the low line. This is turned a little bit compared to the other one. So you can see King Street here, Line Street here on this axis on the aerial map, so that you can see the back area that is, it's kind of the area that has changed on this property since this property had been before the board previously. I want to specifically note, so when staff wrote this up, we wrote it up to kind of clean up all of the history on this site. Based on our review, we believe 30 spaces would be the maximum that this property would need based on its current category of uses. So that's why it was noticed at 30 spaces. The actual deviation here, because of prior approvals and some other things, is actually less, but with this action today, if it is favorable, it will clean it up. The site will have a variance for all of the activities occurring on the site as it is intended to be used going forward. So that's why this will look a little different than some of the other stuff, is just because this is kind of the maximum variance that we believe that the property would need. So the new owner is the Hideout. You can see kind of here they did their use table. They had got it at about 26 spaces. Like I said, when staff did their analysis, we believe it's at 30 spaces maximum. That covers it. That way, if things kind of do shift in the future, it's okay. So this site has been the subject of previous actions as well. You can see here, it did get some approval for to allow a reduction of parking, specifically related to the residential units when there was some on-site parking. And then later that on-site parking was adjusted because of some outdoor dining space. At that time, there had been spaces on the immediately adjacent surface parking area that was under, as the applicant described it, it was under technically common ownership, and that was the understanding I think maybe staff had at the time, but it was only a partial ownership in the subject property or the owner of the property where the parking was. So it really wasn't under common ownership exactly. And now those that parking there has been no longer dedicated to this use. In fact, apparently it's not been dedicated to this property for some time. So at this point, the proposal is that they have the internal space. They also have the external space that where parking used to be, that they have completely converted into outdoor outdoor dining, which again is in the modern era is an important function of this type of business activity. One of the things that we as staff asked them to do, because again, some of those prior approvals had indicated that there was some level of parking, some either adjacent parking or on-site parking. We did ask them to do what we normally do, which is go and check on any spaces that could be leased with our 10-year requirement. They made those attempts. They were able to show us documentation showing that they made those attempts. They also did what I asked them to do, which was kind of take a look at a 10-minute walk shed, which is at most a half a mile of any existing public parking. You can see there are a number of places where public parking is available, and that's gonna go up as garages associated, structured parking associated with some of these other bigger developments come online in the future. And so for those reasons, staff is recommending approval of the variance. And again, we are recommending at the 30 because we believe that cleans up everything and gets rid of, well, 10 spaces were approved here and now another 12 here, and just clean it up at 30 spaces, or 0 spaces where 30 would be otherwise required.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And was there also a submission?
Yes, so we did get a late letter of support from the Cannonboro Elliott Borough Neighborhood Association in support of this request.
Thank you, Robert. All right, do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 58 Line Street? Anyone here in opposition? All right, seeing no one here in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, anything you'd like to say to the board?
No, I think Mr. Summerfield summed it up well. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
How many employees are anticipated?
We'll have to ask the owner that one.
Employees?
I currently have 9 employees.
Is that,
With the expansion of the patio, that will probably go to 15 or so.
and so,
You want to, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, come on up here and speak into the mic and identify yourself for the record. I'm sorry.
I mean, my first concern is what their parking options are. And
Certainly.
The
So
city's shown us a bunch of lots that it kind of seems to admit may be dedicated to other developments at some time in the future. So I'm getting that 30 is a lot of spaces.
no, I understand. Really for staffing, we're benefited in that we are close to the Department of Transportation lot underneath the bridge, which is about 300 spots to my estimation, which is where our employees park. I've owned restaurants on East Bay Street and downtown. This is by far the easiest place to operate as far as parking for my staff and for our guests.
So are those spots permanently dedicated to public parking? What is their status?
So that area under the freeway, I know is parked. I don't know. It definitely isn't developable. You can't do anything other than parking under the freeway essentially.
Yeah.
But I don't know if SCDOT has a specific thing that says this is just available for parking. I know the city typically will have leases for areas under the freeway for parking. In fact, we have a number of those, but this is not one of those, so I don't know. I don't know any specifics about the parking under that portion of the freeway. I do know that the proposed hotel there on the other side of the street, they did indicate that they had gotten a lease from SCDOT for spaces under the west side of the west of King side of the freeway for meeting their parking requirement. Our portion of their parking requirement.
And to address further, I mean, our hours of operation Monday through Thursday will be from 4 p.m. onwards. In my experience with staff, I mean, even finding a metered spot, you pay the meter from 4 till 6, and then they stop checking meters at 6 o'clock. It's usually the best option for our staff if they can't find one. I park underneath the bridge there, and while my car is a bit dirty, it's rather convenient.
If there was parking on site, how many spaces could you provide?
So
Did you look at that?
we did. So if you look back to 2009, when it was Shine Restaurant and there was the approval for 5 spaces currently, my architect informs me that we would be non-zoning compliant if we were to return that to parking. Just because of the business levels on Line Street, you would have to back onto Line, and its proximity to King would be unavailable. So we did an exhaustive search of the lot next door and all of those lots, which I walked on foot, and trying to find a lease, and the most anyone would commit to is a 6-month lease, obviously with the level of development in the area. So,
They're not even feasible, they always have parking on site.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So yeah, so while this was identified as parking back in 09, this parking would not meet parking standards for design standards for maneuverability. Because as he said, Line Street, again, with that growth that I was talking about, would not be approved for backing out of a commercial property.
want to clarify, I mean, it concerns me, an area in transition, not having 30 spaces, not knowing what's going to be happening with those adjacent properties in regards to parking, although you just clarified about the hotel. So that makes things a little bit better. But I'm just want to ask a question to make sure I'm understanding. The lot to the right that shows that parking, that is not being used by the restaurant at all?
It is I believe it's
Outdoor space.
it's a public parking, it's not publicly owned, it's a private commercial parking facility. But it is not, it's under separate ownership, separate operations from the restaurant. I believe they have hourly, like they do the app thing.
It is all pay to park, yes.
So it's
that-
still being used for parking, but just not dedicated to this particular parcel.
Correct, yes, our guests can absolutely park there and our staff can park there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I didn't ask you, could you please identify yourself?
Forgive me, my name is Zachary Dennis, I'm the owner of King Street Hideout.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Appreciate that. All right, any other questions for Mr. Dennis? Just one moment. Anybody else from the board have any questions?
So it just, with what Alan was saying, so that parking there is available now, but we don't know how long that parking is going to be.
It is a commercial
You're saying
parking
that.
facility. One of the comments that was made, I think, when the applicant did talk to the owner and tried to get a commitment on if they could lease some spaces longer term, is that they wouldn't commit to long term. It is it's a parking lot, so parking lots on the peninsula are endangered species. And so that said, there will be new structured parking in a number of the other projects. I know immediately across the street at Curry Square Phase 3, they're building structured parking, and as a part of that, they are including some level of additional spaces for daily parkers, because they will have retail and other components in there as well. And I know they're building to take care of their on-site needs as well as off-site. The city is taking over this portion of King Street. That'll be an action city council will be working on. And part of that road diet that will happen on King Street would include Curry Square Phase 3 giving up some property to be able to accommodate on-street parking on this portion of King Street like we have on other portions of King Street. So there'll be some new spaces there. Again, this is becoming a more walkable area. And so that was why staff was recommending support, because there are commercial parking and other parking opportunities within the area.
And my understanding of Courier Square Phase 3, I got to see the presentation at the CNET Neighborhood Association meeting, is that the entire underground will be parking. As they expand the low line up and down and make an amphitheater there, will be public and I did not include that.
I would say,
But that's still a few years away.
But in 2029, I think is their
Yeah.
forecast.
I think it's somewhat safe to say this is not a more intensive use than with Barca.
So that is the other side of this, this has been operating this way and without any complaints that we're aware of for a while. Again, that parking next door went away and no one knew that it went away, and no one, in terms of officially theirs, again, it's paid park, so patrons have still been able to park there and pay their, $2 or whatever an hour or whatever they pay. Yeah, so this is not more intense than when it was previously Barca.
Thank you.
My question.
Actually smaller, we're using less occupiable square space on the patio. We're going to be building a bathroom structure ideally and a bar, so we're actually compacting the patron use area.
Any other questions for Mr. Dennis? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Dennis. Ma'am, if you'd like to come up, please, and just come up to the podium, state your name and state your question.
Well, my name is Linda Blanchard. My question is that under the overpass gonna be part of the low line or is it?
So the DOT parking area right now that they're permitting parking under the overpass? Robert, do you know?
So on this aerial, you'll see the gray between the striped blue and where it says 48 Line Street there, and then you kind of see how, so that's the alignment for the low line. So if you then go to this picture, so the area that is kind of the hash mark there, I don't know if you can see that kind of right above the K. Get my handy dandy magnifying glass. So this right here, this is the low line alignment. So the parking under the freeway happens in kind of this area here, as I understand it. Again, I'm not overly familiar with the freeway part. I know about this part just because we've recently looked at an application for it. But yeah, the low line would be adjacent to that area where people currently, that's used currently for parking. But the parking would not interfere with the low line and vice versa. The city has a lease on all of that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Blanchard. All right, any other questions? Any public comment? Public comment, any questions, any discussion? Or
Move approval.
Morrissey moves to approve. Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously 5-0. And the variance for 58 Line Street is granted. Thank you, Mr. Gunn.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B7, 67 Gibbs Street, Charlestown, Council District 8. PMS number 457-11-01-047 zone STR, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a generator stand with a 3.4-foot west side setback. 12 feet required. Owner is Marcelo Hockman. Applicant is Alyssa Britton. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this property is a mid-block property here on Gibbs Street with Ashley and Rutledge as the kind of the two bookend streets there. So you can see this location mid-block. You can see the footprint of the building on the map. Not a lot of area to the sides or even honestly to the rear. You can see the aerial here. So this request is to put their elevated mechanical equipment. Staff is recommending approval. I will note we have a amendment to the code that's going through the process right now. It'll be a planning commission next week. I've already previewed it with the Community Development Committee of City Council, and they seem very happy with it. That will exempt any request for elevating mechanical equipment from needing to get a special exception or variance or what have you going forward. Again, the city's a little late on this. We've been emphasizing live with water, be smart, get your generators and have a generator in case, God forbid, we have a bad storm. Get your mechanical equipment up off the ground. But then particularly for properties like this, we don't have an ability, if they have a second accessory structure, we don't have the ability for them to just do that as an administrative process. We make them actually come get a variance. So we're fixing that, not in time for this applicant, but ideally that will be adopted by council into code later this summer, June or July. And we won't see applications like this going forward because they will just be handled by staff as administrative items. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 67 Gibbs Street? Seeing no one in opposition, we have the owner or applicant. All right, anything you need to say? Probably not. I wouldn't think so. Anybody have a motion? Move for Mr. McKay, moves to approve. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No one opposed. The motion passes unanimously. And the variance for 67 Gibbs Street is granted. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, B8, 1940 Bradham Road. James Island, Council District 3, TMS number 340-00-00-034, zoned SR1, requesting a variance from section 54-824 to create a new lot that does not meet the minimum required lot frontage on a right-of-way. The owner is 1940 Riverland Drive LLC. The applicant is Corey Strickland. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so as mentioned, this is out on Johns Island. This is by every definition of an oddly shaped lot. I don't know that if they had worked harder, they could have made this more oddly shaped. A particular note is this area here. This is where the street frontage is for this existing property. This is already, it doesn't generally meet our requirements. You can see the aerial, currently it's a wooded lot. So here you can see the, let's see if I can magnify this. So you can see here, they're creating a ingress and egress easement so that they can subdivide the lot. The lot has more than enough area for subdivision. But because of the very unique shape of this lot, and again, the limited frontage that exists on the current lot, and alone through any subdivision process, they need to create this kind of cul-de-sac-y, and that's an official word, cul-de-sac-y. It's lower French, that will create the access easement for both lots, owned in common between the two lots, and basically create kind of a new lot frontage back at the kind of the apex of the cul-de-sac bulb versus the current lot frontage, if you would. So again, because this is a very uniquely shaped lot that already has issues with meeting the lot frontage as it is, but has more than enough room to be subdivided. Again, we are about promoting opportunities for appropriate housing, and we think this is a site that can accommodate housing. And so staff is recommending approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here who is in opposition to the application for 1940 Bradham Road? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, anything you'd like to say?
No, Your Honor.
Got it.
He liked that.
I do. All right, anybody have any questions for the owner, applicant, or for the city?
You have to get him robes now.
My only question, the very back of that lot, it almost looks like a structure that would be inside the easement.
So there is a two-story building back here. You can see actually that, so there's a utility easement that runs through there. But the property line, you can see it butts out so that they continue to meet setbacks.
Okay, so that means all the current side setbacks. We're not creating a problem by doing
No.
this. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, I should have drawn attention to that.
Good clarification, good question. Thanks, Chappie. All right, anybody else have a question? Motion?
I'll move for approval.
All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The variance for 1940 Bradham Road is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night. All right, the next item on our agenda, B9, 2133 Edisto Avenue, Riverland Terrace, Council District 11, TMS number 343-03-00-053, zoned SR1. Requesting variance from section 54-301 to build an accessory dwelling unit with an 11-foot side street setback, 25 feet are required. The owner applicant is Rachel Bassett. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see this property. This is one of a few properties on Edisto Avenue that is in the city, but I have encouraged the applicant to reach out to his neighbors and tell him about the wonderful experience he's had working with the city on this project. And hopefully we'll get a few more folks in Riverland Terrace into the city. So this project is actually very reminiscent of one that you all looked at. Not that any project creates a precedent, but it's very similar to one that we looked at a few weeks ago, where we had one of these corner side lots. They wanted to build an accessory structure. In this case, it's an accessory dwelling unit. They had a grand tree on the property that they were trying to protect. In order to protect that tree, it did create some difficulties with meeting the setback. Similarly, this applicant is doing what we would want, which is protect that tree. The proposed ADU will not come forward on the Hinson Avenue side any closer than the house, so it actually will create a very consistent street frontage from the Hinson Avenue side with the proposed ADU. This is another multi-generational request to help accommodate a multi-generational living situation on this property. And they do have 3 letters of support on this, including the neighbor that is most immediately affected at 2122 Welch Avenue. With that, staff is recommending approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 2133 Edisto? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner applicant here? All right, anything you'd like to say to the board? All right, any questions for the city, questions for the owner? Ellie looks like she wants to make a motion. Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes, and the variance for 2133 Edisto Avenue is granted. All right, the next item on our agenda, B10. 347 Ashley Avenue, West Side, Council District 6, TMS number 460-03-03-038, zoned DR2F, requesting a use variance from section 54-201 to allow a restaurant. Request a variance from section 54-301 to allow 5 dwelling units, 2 are allowed. Requesting a variance from section 54-317 to allow 5 dwelling units and a restaurant with 928 square feet of patron use area with zero parking spaces. 17 spaces are required. The owner is SC Reno Partners LLC. The applicant is Coastal Creek Design. Joel Adrian, Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so here's the aerial. You can see this is at the corner of Race Street and Ashley Avenue. You can see the request is actually 2 buildings on this site. These 2 buildings do take up the majority of the site, including basically all access points. So there's not any reasonable access or location on this property for any parking to occur. And this is a historic structure. So the way it's built was never intended to accommodate was never meant to accommodate vehicles on the site. So here you can see kind of the rendering of the front. See the aerial FEMA, they basically did their BAR packet here. Some Sanborn maps. Again, you can see that this is traditionally had multiple buildings on the site and really wasn't set up for vehicles. It looks like the new unit, which was kind of designated, I think, as a duplex, was at least as old as 1955, according to the Sanborn maps. This building definitely needs some TLC, and we are excited about the idea of it getting that TLC in this restoration project. Here you can see the survey. You can see the existing conditions in terms of lot coverage and how it's used, as well as the proposed outline. So traditionally, and it's been a little while, but the front of the building was used as a grocery store. Then there was something in the back. Again, you can see on the Sanborn map, it looks like it was a dwelling unit back there. And then the back building had the 2 dwelling units, and under the proposal, they would still have the 2 units in the back. They'd have 1 residential unit on the ground floor of the main building. And then they're proposing, instead of a grocery store, to do just a small neighborhood cafe with some outdoor seating and restoring the side porch that looks like it's maybe got damaged and was parts of it were removed. And then on the second floor of that main building, they would add in 2 slightly larger units, which you can see here on the floor plan, again below elevation of the existing building and essentially restoring that, and then the small building in the back. You can see the aerials here. Again, it did have a porch there. That porch, I'm not sure what happened to the porch, but clearly it is no longer present. They do have some work ahead of themselves on this project. And they do have 4 letters of support. Staff is in support of this request. We did have a lengthy discussion about, is 5 units the right number of units? Just because we're actually less concerned about the commercial use of the property for the cafe in terms of its parking, because it's really small and neighborhood serving. But we did have a lot of back and forth discussion about 5 units and not having any designated parking for those 5 units. Because again, we see these as naturally occurring affordable units because of their size and just the nature of where they would be. But unfortunately, our environment requires folks often to have a car in order to get to work, get to take their kids to doctor's appointments, things like that. So even when you are in a affordable situation, workforce situation, you still, unfortunately, in many cases, need a car. So 1 car per unit is probably appropriate unless they were officially designated as affordable. Again, we see these as naturally occurring affordable, which kind of brings down that per unit need from maybe 2 to 1, and we were kind of supportive of that. But unless they were officially designated as affordable, which has a lot more constraints on it, even at that, 5 units would require 2 parking spaces to be available. So we do have some questions about that. Historically, it has been, again, it has been at least 3 dwelling units, because you can see that at least designated in the 1955 Sanborn map. And you look at the historic floor plans, and again, it would seem that there was probably 4 units, maybe the 5th unit. I don't know that we have great documentation, though. At least we weren't able to find any city documentation showing 5 units approved on the site historically. So with that, staff is recommending approval. We do have questions about being able to support 5 residential units with no dedicated parking for those, but we are completely in support of the use variance and essentially most of the parking variance request.
Most of it.
Well, again, if it doesn't have, so say it's 4 units, then that parking variance goes down because we don't have the additional 2 spaces for that. So then it's, and again, we think 1 space per unit is probably reasonable to think about for these. So then we're mostly supportive of the parking variance, but again, that's where we're at. We want the project because we think, again, naturally occurring affordable housing, rehabilitation of an existing historic building, reactivating that property these are all good things. we just have questions about the residential component and it not having parking. But clearly, at least 3 units have historically been there with no parking.
Okay, so the city has, the city recommends approval of the use variance and is a little iffy about the parking variance for 5 units.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Grass, please.
I just wanted to ask for clarification. So, well, first of all, what are you considering affordable housing? You keep saying it's affordable.
So naturally occurring affordable means that it will be priced at market rents, but those market rents will be low enough. Generally, when we say naturally occurring affordable, that folks in the workforce could rent them at
Do
a.
you know how much they'll be rented?
I don't know. It's just, again, similarly sized units in similarly situated conditions. We generally would look at those as what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. They are not officially affordable housing at this point. I want to make that very,
So we
very
can't
clear.
really consider them as affordable.
No, we can't consider them affordable for purposes of applying the affordable housing parking designation to them.
And then my other question is, we received 2 letters of support, but you.
Yes, so
you
there,
sent 4.
yeah, no, we had 2 other ones that were received later, similar kind of formulaic stuff. So you had in our public comment packet, we had these 2, and then we received 2 other ones that we received more as images, and we included those here in the presentation. So we did receive a total of 4 letters of support. And again, this one is, these are, I'm assuming a couple that live at the same property, and then these were from 2 different properties.
But you didn't receive any nearby, because I noticed these are several blocks away from the property.
So I'll be honest, I did not do the address check that I normally do on letters of support, so.
And we can talk about it in a minute. Sorry, I just was asking about the other letters that we hadn't seen.
But
Okay.
you're right. I
Well-
think they are on different blocks than the actual block that this is on.
Robert can look at that while we're in the middle of this. So does anybody have an objection to the application for 347 Ashley Avenue? I see 1 hand. I see 2 hands. All right, so do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, Mr. Adrian.
Thank you, Joel Adrian, Coastal Creek Design, here to do my best to explain what's going on and what has been. Do I have the ability to take control of that?
You don't, but you have the ability to direct me to a slide.
If we could go to the historical timeline. So first, I'd like to say thank you for your time. I think that we can prove that the number of residential units that we're requesting were on site. And that we're not looking to add a residential unit. And when you look at the timeline, you get down in here into the 1900s, early 1900s, you'll see a grocery store located on the 1st floor, and that the Mexican family live in an apartment above. And so we know that was there back in the early 1900s. We know that there was a ground floor unit on that building and then the 2 units behind. And then if we go to just the existing survey, which probably is down a couple sheets right there. So when you look at that survey, currently there used to be the piazza along the side that had the stairs that went up to this unit. But we believe that there was a unit in the back here that used these stairs to get out. There was a unit in the front that had the piazza stairs. And that's illustrated on one of our floor plan sheets. And so that's the existing conditions of what's left there. I mean, obviously you can see from the photos, the building is in complete disrepair, half of it's missing. There is a fireplace that's existing that was on the 1st floor that extends up and goes up, which would indicate residential use. But Robert, if you flip through a couple more sheets right here. So when you look at this sheet, obviously units 4 or 5 in the detached building in the back, grocery store, unit 1 here. If we flip to the next sheet, then you'll see that the piazza used to come up and come into this unit, and there was a stair that went off into the back. And then we've got photos all the way at the end that that kind of shows the little bit of framing that's left. And you can see that there's the 2 doors, very different style doors that are up there that would signify 2 different units existing on that 2nd floor. We are appreciative that the city is in favor of the use of the coffee shop. We think it'll be a wonderful addition to the property. I think it's important to note that both of these structures are of age that this whole property is under VAR review and purview for any demolition. So the thought, hey, can we demo the little building in the back and stick parking there isn't an option. We do know that those residential units existed. I don't know how long ago. We do know that they were there, and we're looking just to restore fabric that's been in this neighborhood since the early 1900s. I think that if you look, I believe that our letters of support are not blocks away, but it should be adjacent across the street, and then maybe 1 block over. But it's not like we went to Wentworth and asked for support for this application. We did meet with neighbors that were available as we were walking through, and we get some letters of support, and I'll answer any other questions that y'all have.
So on that note, so one of them is 353 Ashley, so that would be actually the neighboring property here. One of them is 156 Ashley or 356 Ashley, which I think would be over here. And then the other one is 453 Race, which is right here.
Right, so we are in the neighborhood meeting with the people that live there. We also have that diagram that kind of shows the streets in the area that which ones are designated for. I might be towards the end, which ones are designated, that backup one, for public parking, which ones were designated residential parking, and where our property is. So I think that there is off-site parking available, and we hope for y'all's support along with the zoning administrators.
All right, thank you, Mr. Age.
So does the building straight across,
Before you
sorry,
sit down, Mr. Morrison has a question.
is the building directly across Ray Street, does it have any off-street parking? That immediate south building that looks full lot coverage there.
I would say that
I'm gonna say no. No, there's no way 345
The
has.
building immediately north on Ashley, do we know if it has a driveway in the yellow?
I believe there is, from one of the photos, we were able to see, it looks like there's maybe a driveway over
You
there.
could have seen it on that one you were just on, if overhead. photo.
yeah, I believe there's, if you're talking about right here, it looks like there's something that's occurring here.
So immediately north on Ashley on the west side.
There's not a driveway. Okay. The audience participation is saying no.
And I'm just wondering how much street parking there is in that immediate area and how much demand there is for it at night.
Just
Okay.
personally riding my bike through, it's a pretty narrow street to me, it seems like. I don't know, that was my concern, as I've looked at it, and I apologize for getting the addresses wrong for the letters, but I feel like it's really narrow, the streets, and that the residents do park on the street.
I mean, and the historical thing's interesting, but it's hard to tell between 2, 3 or more dwellings, whether they were there and occupied at the same time or in different eras in smaller numbers. It's difficult for me to tell. And 5 looks like an effort by this owner to maximize. What's the average square footage of the units as proposed?
You know, there we can take a look. So on this first, on the second floor area, there's 1754 square feet. It's pretty much divided in half. So you're looking at 900 square feet roughly per unit. And then it's the same thing on the first floor. The detached units are much smaller. I think that's what Robert was speaking about, is like naturally occurring lower rentals, is that the square footage is such that
Yeah.
you're looking at small units.
I mean, so y'all didn't discuss a condition of limiting each unit to one automobile? You just floated that notion as being a conversation piece, but.
Well, the problem is there is no availability for on-site parking.
Yeah.
So from our standpoint, the thing that we were internally discussing was, do we recommend a reduced variance? So instead of allowing 5 units where 2 are allowed, put that at 3 or 4, which then has and then on the variance, make those adjustments to that. Because again, there is no on-site parking. That's not legitimately not an option. As Mr. Adrian said, you know, the BAR is not, even though it's a CMU building, they're unlikely, especially not to put parking in. They're not gonna let that back building be torn down to put in parking spaces. And so, I'm sorry, it's a board, so I can't speak for a board, not even this one.
Do you think it's unlikely?
I think it's highly unlikely that they would approve for 70-year-old, you know, building that otherwise has the potential to have a future life to be torn down to be used for parking. So there is no on-site parking, so there will be a variance for the parking for any approval of the site. We want the site to go back into productive use. Our question was, you know, again, I think we couldn't get to the 5, although we can see where Mr. Adrian and his client, when they were piecing it together, may have thought that there might have been 5. We clearly see on the Sanborn, at least as 1955, there's 3. You look at that history, yes, there was definitely an apartment above, so that's 4. I can't see to 5, and so that's why I wanted Mr. Adrian to present to the board and you all to have a conversation about, you know, whether or not you think the neighborhood can handle 5 additional residential units, which it means at least likely 5 additional nighttime car parkers. Or do you think it's more realistic to be something less than that for the residential approval?
So Robert, the existing second floor plan is blank. The proposed second floor plan is blank. Can we look at the?
Oh, those are the back building is only 1 story, so there's no second story on it. So that's why those are blank. The second story is about the front building.
So, yeah, can we look at the existing condition pictures that you have? Then I think you had one that had. Look at that CMU block building.
Yeah, the CMU block building is I don't think we have any.
I did not provide any.
I mean, you can see the back of it right here. This is the interior lot side in the upper left-hand corner. And then you can kind of see it from a different view, but no, we don't have I don't think we have everything is predominantly about the supporting of the main building.
What's gonna happen with those back units?
Those are, so that's, again, those are in floor plan 1, so those would be rehabbed back to two units.
Okay.
So those are 1-bedroom units.
Yeah, those are just
And the
one
3 in the main
story,
house are
1-bedroom units.
2-bedroom each.
So you're not intensifying those 2 back
No.
units, they're just being restored.
Yeah, that part was never a question for us. It's really about, again, we weren't able to get there, although we acknowledge the evidence that Mr. Adrian and his client put together, whether the upstairs apartment on the main building, was that a 2 units or 1 unit, and to your point, Mr. Howe, like when in history was that? Was it 2 units, but when the bottom wasn't maybe a unit? And, or, so how did all of that work? We don't know. We just don't have enough information about that.
Well, but then Mr. Adrian presented that the upstairs was used for the family, so how do we know it was split into apartments?
We don't.
We don't
I'm
know
just
at all.
saying from the evidence of the different entry points, at some point, someone probably created a duplex up there. But to answer your question about the number of beds on the existing house, structure, second floor, there'd be 2 units, 2 beds each unit. First floor is 1 bed, and then the back buildings are 1 bed each. So there'd be 3 1-bedroom units and 2 2-bedroom.
So more than likely, the 2 units will have 2 cars.
5, 6, 7.
I mean, I would
7 or 8
assume, but I don't
cars.
know that, but, I guess, going back to the naturally occurring affordable housing, did you look at comparable, like what 969 square feet would rent for in this area, by any chance?
No, I personally.
I don't know, I guess I'm having an issue. Do we need to finish?
Well, we would like to hear from 2 people in the audience about their opposition to the application, so that would be next. So come on up, please. I was giving you a long leash.
Hi, my name is Camille Lohman. I'm South Carolina native. I've been in Charleston, graduated from College of Charleston, and now I'm a public high school teacher in James Island, and I've been a resident for almost 10 years on Ray Street. A couple of things that I'd like to bring up, first of all, is also naturally affording homes do not exist anymore in Charleston. I have friends that are nurses, have more than 1 job, and are single moms, and they cannot afford anything on the peninsula, and they have to go all the way to the Mark Clark. Several of them, so naturally affording, I think, is an inappropriate way to talk about any housing downtown, especially if you are 1 income. Second of all, I know my neighbors on Ray Street. Miss Anna Sykes is beside me. She has been there off and on since she was born. She is now 89. She can tell you about all the different properties that used to be there, the candy stores that used to be there. And I can guarantee you that in 1900, you did not have to worry about parking, nor a lot of additional things that you do now. I have no problem with this possibly being a lovely corner cafe, but with the way gentrification is going, the majority of the houses around this area are now just Airbnbs. And the idea that me as someone who loves the city, has lived other places and has come back to here, I want to create a neighborhood that has all different types of people, colors, shapes, and sizes, and has an actual feel of neighbors, not what I'm seeing Charleston progressively become, especially for those people who do not live in the outskirts. This was a majority Jewish neighborhood for a long time, and then also African American. And to have the parking obviously is a major issue, but also kind of the transient lifestyle that comes with 5-unit buildings, 3-unit buildings. I've seen my entire street kind of transform, and there are people on the street that want to live there forever. They have children, and it is becoming a strong community, which also is continually lacking as this gentrification comes. The property on Line Street, the highway, that is not gonna, yes, it is more walkable now, but I've never seen traffic like this. As someone who bikes a lot, which is incredibly dangerous in this city. And there have been several people that have been hit by cars in that area. The traffic is not going to slow down. It's only going to increase. Not to mention Uber drivers. Then you have all the restaurants that are popping up that don't have parking. Residential parking is already a problem on the street as it is. My house is maybe 900 square feet. And I can't imagine 5 units encompassing that space. Again, I talked to neighbors, and the idea of a small grocery thing, whatever there is, it seems very nice, but if you have 2 bedrooms, you're gonna have 2 cars. And we already struggle with parking. And a lot of this houses on the street don't have driveways. My house is from 1929. I don't have a driveway, so we always depend on each other in that wonderful southern community thing of like playing Tetris with our cars and watching each other's houses and that kind of thing. The idea that you're gonna bring in possibly 8 more lives into that area and cars, it just seems that we're getting farther and farther away from building strong community in that area of the city. I also wanna put into thought about the flooding that happens on Ashley Avenue. The entire street becomes non-negotiable when it rains. And I'm not talking about when there's a king tide, I'm not talking about any of that. It literally shuts down and there are barricades. So you're looking at where, if it rains, will people park that are coming to a restaurant? And Race does not flood. And Miss Sykes, and Miss Sylvia will tell you that, they didn't even leave during Hurricane Hugo. So, I guess I'm asking that you consider the vitality of a neighborhood that is slowly becoming just Airbnbs. And also, that you consider the residents that already have lived there for generations, possibly not generations, maybe one generation. And think about the residents that are currently, there. And also, pardon my dress, but I'm a school teacher and it's spring break, so you must know how important it is that I'm here in another public building.
Thank you, Ms. Loman. All right, I saw another hand up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hard act to follow.
Hi, I'm Amanda Server. I live in the West Side neighborhood. I don't live exactly in that area. I do currently represent the West Side Neighborhood Association, although I'm not here in that capacity, but here in the spirit of just hearing and understanding what's going on in the neighborhood. Cannot agree more with the nature and the fabric of the
Also a
community.
one-way street, sorry.
It is one. Well, I was gonna get to the logistics because I can't top the passion and the eloquence. So if you look at the street itself, the building is quite large, but there is a fire hydrant on one side of it, and then on the front where you have the porch, it sort of looks like it's blocked off from parking access. So even around the building itself, I think at most maybe three parking spaces that are naturally occurring around the building itself. And I do agree. I think if you put in a bunch of 5 units, they're gonna be 2 cars, even if you say limit to 1. There's nothing to enforce that in that neighborhood because you can freely park where you want. So I think the limitation on the 5 units just feels like quite a bit to me to pack into that space, given the logistics of the parking. It is a one-way street. It is quite narrow. Ashley's very busy too, so I would think if I were parking there, I would try to avoid parking on Ashley, just given the nature of that street, if you can at all possibly. So the tightness of it, the logistics of the parking, 5 units feels quite significant to me, knowing there's absolutely no way to enforce even if you try to place a one car per unit restriction. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything to say in opposition? Okay, Mr. Adrian, would you like to respond?
Yes, please. Thank the neighbors for speaking. I do appreciate the passion. I live on the peninsula as well. Robert, if you could maybe clarify, because I find a zone DR2F, I believe it is, and I don't know that it's designated for short-term rental as a possibility, because we had not considered it as a possibility short-term rental. So I think we could potentially take the Airbnb and the transient nature of people coming and going potentially off the table, and it being really meant for people that are looking to live for 12 months to 2 years or however long they're going to be in the area doing whatever they're doing until they move on to another residence. Parking is a challenge anywhere in the city, and I don't know that these 5 units will change that narrative. I mean, they're not going to add so many cars. It's like, oh crap, I work park. My street, on Wentworth, I don't have any off-street parking spots. I got 2 that I can take off, and then my children park around the corner on Gadsden or on Montague. They walk back to the house when it rains. I'm like, God, I'm so glad my car's here. But I do think that we have shown, I believe, that there were at least 4 units. I believe there were 5, and I believe we've shown that there was a real possibility of 5 units, but certainly no less than 4 units on that property for quite some time.
And so, Mr. Adrian, the significance of that to you, if there were 4, are you saying that that's a grandfathered condition without parking that should be continued, or the fact that that use lapsed, that have an impact on what you're saying?
No, I think that, just as we're able to show when the building was originally built, we had a grocery store, neighborhood grocery on the first floor with that timeline, and then it became the apartment above, and then the apartment behind, and then the other building behind that. So I think that because all those uses have been there, they should be able to be maintained.
Okay, so you're just talking about the history of the property, and you're not implying some legal requirement associated with the ability to use 4 or 5 residential
No,
units.
I'm not saying in the South Carolina code or blah, 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 or anything like that, but I do think that in a city where history is as important as it is to us, looking at someone that's looking to take a property that has been neglected and is a danger, and renovating it and putting it back to the uses that were there is definitely something we consider.
Do you know anything about the economic feasibility of the project with less than 5 residential units?
No, it's the design guy.
Do we have the owner, do we have a representative of the owner here this evening?
We do, I'd like to speak, but
No.
My name's Shane Langdale. I'm one of the owners.
Yes, sir. Anything you can tell me about the economic feasibility of the project without 5 residential units?
Yeah, I mean, basically what we, like Joel said, when we were looking at it's obviously originally some type of Charleston single piazza, because you can still see the old outline of the stairs. And when we got to the top of the stairs, there was 2 doors there. On the inside, there was, there was no opening from one. I mean, in other words, there was a wall blocked off. So up on the 2nd floor, you could see that there were, at some point in time, because there was also a set of steps on the back of the unit that went up. They were collapsing. Like we had to take them down because they were really falling down. But it kind of the staircase went between the original old house and the little block building. So it went up there, but when we got up there to do the demo and take all because up on the 2nd floor there was just debris, years and years of old furniture, antiques, trash. That's what happened to the stairs. We had guys just removing the stuff. The whole porch started collapsing. The whole thing dropped a foot down. So we just had to brace it up so it wouldn't fall and kind of do like a spider web thing. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do this as sort of a mix of uses, right, with the clearing.
You gotta identify yourself.
Sorry, Dane Richard, partners with Shane Langdale on this project. So we view this as a mixed use project in a very informal use of that word, with the commercial on the ground floor and apartments, other residential units. We feel that it's very important to get more units just given the state of this property. I mean, you see the pictures, but they don't really do justice. I mean, it's in complete disrepair. I would say borderline dangerous. So it's just going to be a very, very significant project, very expensive project, obviously. And when you're able to add more units, that increases the viability of that project. So that's kind of the desire behind it. We feel like in this neighborhood that there's going to be people that use bikes. I mean, again, we can't control that, but we don't feel that it's going to be 2 cars per unit. But yeah, it's hard to say. I will say though that I think just an important fact, and that I personally met with these particular neighbors, the ones that I could nearby, and I focused on the neighbors closest to the project. So the person directly north, the next door neighbor, I wasn't able to connect with the lady directly to the south, but then the people directly kind of facing the unit or facing the building, and then the person facing the building across the street are all in support of the project and sign letters to that effect. So I feel like that speaks to them as neighbors, in terms of weighing the pros and cons, obviously, and different impacts of the project. It being overall support feels a positive statement for it. So yeah, that's a long answer, but yes, I mean, it's important for justifying the significant cost, which is probably more than we paid for the property, to get it to a livable state.
Understood. Yeah, I think I see where you're coming from. All
What
right,
kind
anybody?
of cafe or coffee shop or what? I hadn't heard a description of what.
So we don't have like a tenant lined up. It said restaurant on there, which I don't envision it being. We envision it being either sort of just a true kind of coffee shop without any like no hoods or anything like that. Sort of a walk-in, walk-out type thing, serving that neighborhood. Or potentially, to the extent possible, like a very light retail use, like a flower shop or something like that. But I think what we think makes the most sense is like a neighborhood walk-in coffee shop or smoothie place or something like that.
To be clear, the request is for a restaurant, which is what our code would call all that you described except for the flower shop. Because this is a residential zoning district and you have to get a use permit, if you decide to do something that's more of a retail use versus the restaurant use, you will have to come back here and do this all over again. So just
Okay.
be aware of that, not the residential component, depending on how this goes, but any change of use from what you're proposing as a potential restaurant, again, whether that's a cafe all the way up to Michelin star, all of that's in the restaurant category. And so that's what you are asking for at this time. Any deviation from that would require a new evaluation and potentially a new use variance.
Robert or Joel, I have one question. Somebody talked about historic structure. Clearly the front is a historic structure. Can you tell me more about the CMU blockhouse in the back and its age? You think that's?
Yeah, that's on the timeline, and it also shows up, like Robert said, in the Sanborn map, but in the fifties or the forties, but
So you think the CMU houses went up in 53?
yeah, so if we go, yes, Woodhouse at the rear, demolished, CMU addition was added west side, initially 3-bedroom apartment. And then it currently exists as 2 single.
Yeah, it shows on the Sanborn map as 2 dwelling units in the 1955 Sanborn map that they included. So when we look at when we look at 51, it had something else back there, but when we look at 55, you can see that it has added to in the current configuration, it's got the 2 dwelling units there.
Can you go back to that picture that you have?
Which one?
The one of the CMU block building.
This is about the only picture I have. I have drawings.
Oh, no, I think there was one that we could see them horizontally. They had. There, yeah, one more. Let's go one more picture.
Yeah, this is the only one that shows the actual.
Oh, there it is, up there on the left. Has anybody asked BAR for permission to remove that?
No one, I mean, I'll look to Joel. I'm not aware of any cases related to this project at BAR yet.
No, but we're 75 years old at this point, right?
Yeah.
So deemed as historic, I go right up for demolition.
And they're while they aren't supposed to look at what comes next, they're not going to be particularly in favor of taking a 75-year-old, otherwise potentially usable building to accommodate parking.
All right, I saw Ms. Lemon. She's been waiting patiently. I think she had something to say.
Would you like me to come up?
Yes, please, because you got to speak into the mic so that we can get it for the record.
One tiny thing, this whole dependent on people are gonna buy is ludicrous, first of all. Can I say ludicrous in here? I don't know, is that off the record? Sorry, not ludicrous, that.
You can say that word.
Yeah, that worked.
The city is super dangerous for biking and those that do it. I am one of them. I love the idea that everyone's just gonna bike and there'll be plenty of parking, but now you're also talking about people that are employed by your whatever business it should be, and y'all are talking about the idea of like really like invigorating this space again, but you don't even know what you're invigorating it for. So it sounds like you want money, which is fine. I get it. That is what it's all about in our world. But 5 units seems to me just that you're really stretching it there. Not to mention, if you go to the house that you talked to, I don't know if it's, I'm not sure if they, short-term rental is also sounds lovely, but I can tell you, being on the street for almost a decade, almost every person that has told me that when they have bought that they didn't want to do short-term rental, they all bought.
Yeah,
So there's.
and I don't think it's zoned for that. I'm not sure that they
No, they don't, well, they.
could get permission.
But anyway, I think that, again, I don't think people would be upset with some type of something there, but I think 5 is pushing it. And the space to the north of it, one that has the pool in the back and the pool house, I don't know if that's an older picture, but they're not gonna be worried about being able to park or anything because they have tons of room there and access. So, yeah, that's,
Thank you,
sorry,
Ms.
I
Levin.
won't talk anymore.
No, you're good. Thank you. Mr. Adrian, let me ask you something. Have you all had discussions with the West Side Neighborhood Association or anything to try to get?
We did not meet as a group with the association.
Yeah,
We just walked through the neighborhood and met with neighbors that were present.
right. Okay.
I wanted to ask one question too. Can you explain, I mean, it's wonderful that this building's gonna be renovated. But I'm curious to know if, like, what is the hardship if you're intensifying the use with no parking? So how can you explain the hardship for the variance?
I am here for the variance, but I believe that we've shown that we're not intensifying the use.
Well, I mean, as far as the number of units.
That's what I'm saying, is I'm not intensifying the number of units. I believe that property had 5 units on it. There's 2 in the back of the little building, there's 1 on the first floor attached to what was the grocery and 1 of the units above.
But we're being asked to, 2 are allowed, and we're being asked to approve 5. So that was my question. And there's a variance request for that.
So I understand, and I guess what I'm saying is that 2 are allowed, but more than 2 existed. And so we're just asking that what was there be allowed to be there. And clearly, when you look at that timeline, there were units on the 2nd floor. Those other units were put on a separate building for reestablish. Back to the earlier question about financial impact and if there, what that is, when you look at the state of that building,
Right.
it is new construction in an old shell. And that is more expensive than building new. And so, at some point, when these buildings are taken on as projects, there is always a financial component to it. And you've got to figure out a way that as to what's the return.
Right, and I don't believe this board, we can consider financial considerations.
But the question was asked, so I
Right.
brought that. Questions here?
I think, Mr. Adrian, I think we're good for now. Thank you. We'll let you know. All right, any discussion?
I'd like to take this a bite at a time and move that in favor of the use variance, the first part of this. What's presented to us on the 54-201 to allow the restaurant, which requires, I guess, 4 votes tonight.
Right. Okay. All right. So Mr. Morrison moves to approve the use variance. Is there a second? All right, Ms. Grass seconds that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The use variance is granted.
And what I'd like to ask Mr. Summerfield is, with respect to the third presentation, third vote here, the variance to allow 5 dwelling units and a restaurant with 928 square feet with 0 parking. I don't quite understand about that. Can we vote to allow the restaurant to have 928 square feet of patron use with 0 parking spaces by itself to combine it with this use variance we've just granted and segregate restaurant issues from the dwelling unit issues, which seem to be a different consideration to me?
You can. If you want to separate them out, as long as it's within the scope of what was noticed, that is fine. And
That's no longer a use vote, that's just a variance vote?
correct. So you'd be
Parking
separating
variance
the
for the
parking
restaurant use,
variance
yeah.
into a variance for the restaurant use that you've just approved, and then having a different discussion for the parking related to the residential component of the project.
But the restaurant use could then be greater than 928 square feet if
No, that'd be
if
an
you-
intensification of the use and we'd have to come back.
So, sure, come on up and
Sorry, because
say your piece, because you may not.
right now, you were to say, because right now that restaurant it's got a residential use behind it.
Exactly.
And so if the vote were to go that we don't get the residential that we want, then that use is going to increase.
Okay,
It's not going to be.
That's a good point. I suggest we tackle the dwelling units then. But he makes a good point. I can say off the top of my head, it strikes me that the second
Maybe that's not
floor,
the worst thing ever either.
the second floor could be one much bigger unit and more expensive, valuable.
What it was historically,
Right.
originally.
And
I agree with that.
we could have both CMUs each as another unit, which would be a total of 3 units and would allow them conceivably to increase the size of the restaurant square footage on the first floor. I mean, I take Ms. Lohman's comments about changing the character of the neighborhood district. Those are well-taken comments by me. And I'm sympathetic about that. And they've clearly had 2 to 3 minimum units for many years there, but that was in the old days. We're in the new times now, with different pressures. But I guess what that would lead me to be inclined to do is to move to approve a total of 3 dwelling units on this site with the variance for that.
With
To include the parking variance.
Yes.
Because right now, I guess there's 2 residential dwelling units are allowed. So a variance would be required to permit 3 dwelling units. And then you are going to include in that motion a variance for the parking associated with the 3 dwelling units.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion to approve 3 dwelling units and to approve the variance to allow for 3 dwelling units and the parking associated with those.
I have one question before, I'm sorry.
Well, bless you. So I just need to ask if we are disallowing the ground floor primary building unit. And Mr. Adrian has said, well, in order to make this work, obviously, then that area has to be put to something, so probably to the restaurant. what would be the largest increase to the patron use area that you would anticipate with that? Because we've got to recalculate what the actual.
Doesn't
variance
he
for
need to
parking
come
is.
back with square
I think he's
footage?
gonna have to come back.
Yeah, my question is, we're getting so far away from what was noticed and we're starting to get into the economic viability of a project.
Oh, you know what, we would be at a larger area, so that was outside of the notice, so yes, that would be a thing.
So would the applicant consider deferral?
Maybe you wanna go to BAR and beg them to let you tear down those concrete block buildings, even though they're 75 years old, put some parking back there. That's a sensible thing to do.
Because they're not contributing. I don't know, I think we're really kind of stretching a little bit. Shit, y'all's call.
Right, I mean, we would have, Mr. Adrian, what do you think? Would you want a deferral? You can sort of see which way the wind is blowing here, so I don't.
Back in a couple weeks.
Then whenever we submit, we would just hit that next agenda.
It'd be a month, because if the patron use area goes up, I have to renotice. The variance would go down, the units would go down, but if that patron use area goes up, I have to renotice. So I have to meet my legal ad notice. So then we're on the normal meeting deadline schedule. So you would need to have the revisions to us by whatever the normal submittal is, and then you'd be on whatever that meeting, so because I'd have to do a new newspaper notice for it.
I don't want to agree, but if motion would be for the approval of 4 residential units, then there'd be no need to have to come back and do it. Figure out how to take that second floor unit, make it just 1, keep the 2, and then the 1 on the first floor, and everything stays the same and the parking is reduced. Two additional residential units.
All right, Mr. Morrison, he's
It's not my
he's seen your 3 and he's raising you 1.
I think you ought to go, I think you ought to go to BAR and say, look what we're doing with this horribly dilapidated, primarily historic building. We need you to let us take down these concrete block buildings.
And I'll bring more closer residents. So they can also respond.
And BAR can't, in the demo request, they can't look at what comes next. So
They can look at a developer that says, I'm not doing this project if you make me keep these stupid concrete block buildings.
and
You fix up your dilapidated building yourself.
but we don't own it, they own it, so it's their responsibility.
I mean, it's gonna fall down the next big storm. It's gonna go all the way down.
And again, we've had that happen, and those owners for not maintaining their property have had consequences, so. Yeah,
Not a deferral, but 4 units.
Yeah, we would be able to agree to 4 units and keep the 1 on the first floor so that the advertisement stays the same. Take the second floor and make it 1 unit.
And the restaurant stays at
The
920.
restaurant stays the same square footage.
All right, Mr. Morrison, we have a
I mean,
motion.
I'll support it.
We have a motion, but let's just, we've got a motion on the floor right now to approve 3. So either that needs to be withdrawn or we need to vote on it. So what, do you want to withdraw it so that we can discuss further on the 4, or do we want to go forward on the 3?
Well, I want to hear from the other members.
Yeah.
I can hear.
So
I'm ready to second Mr. Morrison's motion, but I'm confused. I thought we were not able to move forward since we started. We can still move forward with the motion.
Well, there's a motion on the floor and now we're in discussion on the motion. The motion has not been seconded. We have a motion on the floor for the 3 residential units.
Creates a
No
quandary.
action taken.
Yeah, creates a quandary in that 3 anticipated units, second floor and 2 CMUs in the back, leaves the extra space on the first floor. Hasn't been noticed for the size of the restaurant.
So that they would have to come back to get a variance for the parking for a larger size patron area for the restaurant.
But I thought we weren't able, I thought we were just gonna ask them to come back, but we're not.
But we can do that too. We have this motion on the floor. It can either be withdrawn, it can be voted up, it can be voted down.
Or it
Couldn't they
could- or it
also
could die
put-
with no second.
They could put one unit on the first floor, one unit on the second floor, and one unit in CMU.
Do you want to regroup or do you want us to fashion your remedy here?
Get saved.
3 units.
Right.
All right, so I guess the negotiation is, that we could agree, to 3, plus the restaurant, and I think your idea, if we take that CMU building and make that one dwelling, the unit on the first floor in the back of the restaurant would have to remain a residential, so that we don't have to re-advertise and come back again. And then we'll have 4-bedroom unit on the second.
You can combine the 2 CMUs in the rear to a single building?
Well, so it's interior modification, so we can certainly do that. I think that the property is better served with 2 small units. You know, thinking of what the neighbors were saying, that single parents and young people can't live on the peninsula. But it needs to become 1 unit, we can certainly.
Again, we're not dictating exactly how you do it, but we're saying we have 3 units, and right now, 928 square feet of restaurant. Unless you want to come back and change it.
All right, that does not change the motion.
The motion is still pending and Ms. Grass is going to second that motion. And now we have a motion, we have a second. Now we're going to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
I need to just clarify what the variance for parking now will be. With 3 units, parking goes down to a variance for providing
14 spaces.
provide 0 parking spaces where 14 would be required.
And that includes the variance for 3 dwelling units and restaurant patron area of
28 square feet.
928
Yes.
square feet.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right, now we're going to vote. All in favor, please vote.
I was just
Another
gonna-
question.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask Robert if he would just read it precisely the way it's written.
Probably you read it.
Yeah,
precisely
so
well.
the motion at this point, as I understand it, Mr. Howe, would be to approve a variance from section 54-301 to allow 3 dwelling units where 2 are allowed. Request a variance from section 54-317 to allow 3 dwelling units and a restaurant with 928 square feet of patron use area, 0 parking spaces, 14 spaces required. Is that right?
What does it mean for 14 required?
We're gonna have to.
You want me to Google it? I'll Google it.
No, it's okay,
Right.
Ms. Lohman. Here's the deal. The variance is required because our zoning ordinance requires a certain number of parking spaces associated with any particular use. They are seeking to use the property with less spaces than are required by our variance. So when we say 14 are required, that would mean that typically under the use that they're requesting, the zoning ordinance would require them to have 14 dedicated parking spaces. They're seeking relief from that requirement.
Thank you. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Okay, now we're gonna vote. We've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion is passed unanimously. There is a use variance, it's already been granted. And now there is a variance for 3 dwelling units rather than 2. And variances for parking for 3 dwelling units and 928 square feet of patron use for the restaurant. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next item on our agenda, more fun with Mr. Adrian. 4 Henrietta Street, Garden District, Council District 4, EMS number 459, 13-03-078. Zone DR2F, requesting a special exception from section 54-501 to build a single-family residence on a lot of insufficient size, 2,367 square feet. Our existing 2,500 square feet are required. Requesting a special exception from section 54-511 to provide one parking space, 2 spaces are required. Requesting variances from section 54-301 to build a new single-family residence with a 3-foot west side setback, a 6-foot 1-inch total side setback, 7 feet and 10 feet are required, and 65% lot occupancy, 50% is allowed. The owner is SC Reno Partners LLC. The applicant is Coastal Creek Design, Joel Adrian. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see the property here again. I would normally call this mid-block, but this block of Henrietta is pretty long. So it's right here in the area of I'm not sure what that other street is.
Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Elizabeth Street.
Okay.
The neighbor just behind the home.
All right. So you can see that this is a very narrow, very long lot situated here in an area where we do have a number of lots that are just different in terms of their areas and their lot widths and lot coverages and what have you. You can see on the aerial here, this property right between 2 existing buildings, one's slightly newer and one older building. The proposed home is, as you might imagine on a lot like this, is very narrow. It is, as I mentioned, a very narrow lot. You can see here on the survey. Again, somewhat has some depth, but not a whole lot of area. You can see here the proposed lot coverage and where it's exceeding that. You can also see that they have provided on this very narrow lot a parking space for 1 vehicle. As I think the applicant will make reference to, if they actually met the setbacks, you'd have a 10-foot or so wide house. Like I mean, it would be basically you could park a car in there and not like an actual house that's a family might live in. So they are proposing a multi-story, single-family detached structure here. Again, relatively modest home. Appear to be making good use of the area. They're not, even though they are asking for a lot coverage variance, when you look at the square footage and the livability of a home these days, it does not appear to be overbuilt. It's just 3 bedrooms, or I'm sorry, 4 bedrooms technically. But they're not adding game rooms and a bunch of other space. You can see again, very narrow, makes it look a little taller, but it is within our height limits at 2.5 stories. And you can see they provided a profile. Again, this street doesn't have a single typology. They have the 9 Elizabeth, and they have 2 Henrietta and 6 Henrietta and 10 Henrietta. These are, these have very different profiles across the street or through this block of the street. Actually, it is a very small neighborhood because you do have the parking field and for a church. The parking field is for a church. Yeah, right. And so staff is, again, it's not our preferred place to be, but we do want to see single family housing, where single family housing is zoned and where there's a lot. So we are recommending approval. We did receive 2 letters of opposition to this request. One of the letters of opposition was from a neighbor. One of them was from the Preservation Society. The Preservation Society letter suggests that maybe the Garden District neighborhood took a position on this. However, we do not have documentation of their position from them. We just have what is alluded to in the Preservation Society's letter of opposition to this project. So again, not the place that staff wants to be recommending support for multiple variances, but again, we think in this case, the hardship test is met. That said, we did not receive letters of support related to this application, just the 2 letters of opposition. So that test question 4 about neighborhood impacts does become more of an open question, because we didn't get those letters or those notices of opposition until yesterday when the public comment period ended.
All right, thank you, Robert. I assume we have some folks in opposition for Henrietta here. Yeah, okay. See some hands. All right. So first we'll hear from Mr. Adrian again.
Thank you, Joel Adrian, Coastal Creek Design here for Henrietta. So at the start, for thanking Robert for the introduction. The request where it says 65% lot occupancy, 50% allowed. If we go back to our site plan, our proposed site plan, I think it is inaccurate because it is lot coverage by structure. And so we've got 2,367 square feet of structure, 50% would be 1,184. We put you just 1 square foot underneath that, so we're pretty much at the 50% allowed by zoning. We're not asking for an increase to 65%.
What is that discrepancy about? Why is that?
I don't know. Our drawings show that we are moving 50% of the property was structured.
Yeah.
And it was advertised at 65% lot occupancy.
I think I saw, Bill, can you speak to, sorry, can you speak to this number here? Maximum lot occupancy of building 65%?
Says
Nothing where it was getting.
oh yeah, I don't know that. It should be maximum 50%. This, I don't know, that's error. When you look at the table up here, here's your lot size. That's what we're allowed to cover. First floor area is 1063 and we have 120 square feet of porch and
So you're not, but negligibly above the 50%.
we are not above 50%.
Okay.
The good news is we advertised more, so you can always have less.
Right.
And yeah, again, unless we have cause, we don't do the math. We just report out on what's on the paper. So it said 65%. So we reported it out as 65%.
Apologize about that. And so then I would say that looking at the request, obviously if the first special exception is not approved, then nothing gets built on the property because it is undersized by zoning. It's 133 square feet less in lot area than it should be to have the zoning designation that it does. So I think that is a pretty simple request. Anybody coming to develop this property would need that approved before they could build a house. So that said, I think when you looked at, we're 133 square feet under the lot size, the minimum lot size, and we're requesting only a 259 square foot increase of land to use. We're still at our 50% coverage by building. We believe that a very modest application. I will say that we've got a long road ahead of us because the first step is to get y'all's approval for the site layout. We have not presented these plans to DAR. Who knows what they will say about our massing, our size, our scale, proportion, blah, 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 blah. So the final design may change significantly from what's presented today to what gets approved. But when you fill out your application for DAR, it asks for what the zoning approvals were. So I couldn't go to them with this without having an approval for that variance. Robert is correct. You know, we're looking at a lot. A lot up front, or in the back there, we got, it's like 30 feet wide. And so when you take these required setbacks off, you have very little property to work with. We were trying to be sensitive to the neighbor to the left. We've kept the greatest separation we could on that side. We pulled the building forward and then it bumped slightly to the left to accommodate them. We do have the one car that's off street. There are multiple properties in the area that do not, so we're providing that. I'm not gonna speak to the architecture because, again, we haven't even started the BAR debates and where it ends up. But adhering to the rear setback, front setback, so it's really just the sides and the house itself. Get back to here if I could read well again. It's like 16 feet wide in different areas. So it is truly a single house. It's if I had to take that extra 3 feet out, then you're already looking at something that's 11.5 feet wide, and that's not functional. So with that, I'll just answer any questions that y'all might have.
So is the total square footage of the house that you plan to design 3,000 square feet? Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I think we rounded up. We were at like 28 and some change.
Sorry, I thought it was 29 something. Okay, well, so I was confused when I saw the plans and it said that the attic is 800 square feet, I think. I don't know, I didn't write it down, but it said it's heated.
29.42, yes.
Okay.
So
2,900 square feet. So, so that's relatively large. And then, but the attic space I was confused about is, it said it's heated. I mean, it was included in the heated space, the conditioned space.
So it is plannable. You'll see there are dormers that were proposed, and you could get up into that attic and have some sort of living space up there. And that's in that calculation you're seeing for the total square footage.
816.
So it will really be living space, not an attic.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I'll point out, if you go to the that proposed front elevation, I believe the maximum height, I think we got 2.5 stories, 44 feet, I think is what it is. If you look at the very top, you see that little dashed line, that horizontal line, that's the maximum height. By zoning that can be built, we're at just under 40 feet at our proposed height. Obviously, it's in scale, I think, with the entire block, the immediate houses to the right, 2 Henrietta, it's a short one, and the one to the left is a little taller. And you have larger blocks and massing on that street.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from Mr. Adrian? While we've got him up here, I'm sure that we'll hear from him again after we hear from the folks in opposition. Thank you, Mr. Adrian.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
might just real quick, I do
please.
want to make a clarification. As we've kind of discussed previously, you know, as mentioned, the architecture will be handled by BAR. So they show us architectural plans so that we get an idea of what the envelope, because what you all are ultimately reviewing is creating an envelope that's, in this case,
Right, they don't have to build what they're showing.
they don't have to build what they're showing. That would be BAR's purview. What you would be approving is creating an envelope on the property for which they could build. And they otherwise, if it's not in here, they otherwise have to meet all the rest of the development standards, including height, and what have you, or they have to come back before this board and make requests on any deviation from those standards. So I just want to make that clear for us and the audience, just because architecture did come up. Again, we look at that because it's a part of our discussion. The envelope that they're creating, is it reasonable, or is it creating something maybe excessive that is not appropriate? So.
Thank you, Robert. All right, who would like to go first? Okay, step on up. Please state your name and address.
Okay, my name is Ernst Bruder. I'm the owner of 15, just behind the property. And I'm gonna be very short because I have another appointment, because we have our distinguished leader, Brad, who is talking. I'm a developer as well. I was never approached, he made some comments, never approached the community, the neighbors. So I'm just opposing because I think it's a way too big building for that small lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, who's next?
Hi there, my name is Fred Willis, and I'm here to represent the neighborhood, and we have individuals here who would like to speak as well. And if you'll bear with me, so I'm speaking on behalf of a committee that we have within the BZA, well, it's called the Garden District now. And I'd just like to give you a little bit of background. The gentleman who spoke, he and his partners purchased 2 parcels, 2 and 4. And they're basically side by side. Of course, we were hoping someone would come in and maybe the city would support us in expanding this property more in nature with the neighborhood and have a really nice house with some yard and all that sort of thing. So it's probably no surprise that you're going to hear about that. But the 2 lots functioned for decades as one. The house at 2 Henrietta was a duplex, and its stairway protruded onto the property at 2 Henrietta, which is the 4 Henrietta, which is the property we're talking about. And that property served for parking, storage, yard, and also had a storage building at the rear. The staircase has been removed as part of the renovation of number 2. And we, at this time, we would like to say that most of the time developers come, and I know it must be different at the city because I don't know, that they came in and they said, well, we know what the DR2F says. And instead of really trying to put a house that would fit, they just tried to put the biggest, most square footage that could possibly be put on a piece of property. And as I go through this, you'll see that there are other properties that, unlike what we've heard, that are smaller and accommodate a house. So to say that they can't do this without certain things, I think is inappropriately, it's just not true. Most people would come and say, well, let's see what the variances are, or let's go talk to the neighborhood, tell them what you want to do, see what you say. We've offered but not had a chance to meet directly with the developer. And we would certainly like to do that and hope that that will happen. We asked the board, quite frankly, to deny all of these requests. The special exception for a lot of insufficient size, we understand, but they're proposing a 2,942 square foot house on a 2,367 square foot lot. Do you have C1 handy?
I'm sorry?
C1.
I don't have labels, so you'd have to tell me what it is you're looking for.
This is one of the first sheets.
First sheet, site plan.
It's the site plan. There you go.
All right, so here is the existing house. Now this says adjacent house, but this is incorrect. The adjacent house here is actually on the property line. So there, for purposes of the site plan, you're really not looking at the real site plan. And we have photos to show you, and of course it's pretty obvious that the house is there because it is shown on the survey exactly on the property line. And we'll speak to that when we get to the fact that they're asking for, you can see this is the house that's sitting on the property line, but it just so happens that on the site plan, for some reason, it's moved over. We also think that the square footage of this house really is out of character with the neighborhood. If you look at the property line as it says, and we're going to go to the next one, which is, what is the first sheet which shows your plan of the parking?
Survey for site plan.
Site plan, yeah.
That was the one you were just at.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's it. Right here is a catch basin. It's an iron catch basin that protrudes up to the level of the sidewalk. You really wouldn't be able to drive on that or over it. The apron of the former house is right here. And that's where the parking entrance and exit. And in an earlier email, which unfortunately the applicant did not get from me that I sent. I pointed out, you can't park there. And in addition to that, the main entry is, of course, on the right side of the house, and the tradition is that the entries in single-family houses are to the left. So if you're looking north, the door is to the left. If you're looking south, the door is to the right. And the drawings, some of the drawings later on, and I think the sheet is A6.
And I don't have labels, but
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the only way I could keep up. It's the streetscape, which is towards the end. All right, this is 9 Henrietta and 3 Henrietta. Now, unfortunately, these are incorrect. They're backwards. The opposite side of the street, and I'm going to be pointing to number 3 Henrietta several times. The door is on the right. And it is sort of designed in the Charleston style that that door faces across the street with the door on the left. But these are misrepresentative and backwards at this time. Now, we mentioned, and I'm really speaking to the parking exception. When we look across the street at number 3, this lot is 2 feet more narrow than number 2, Henrietta. You heard earlier, there weren't any other lots this size. This is smaller. It has a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house, and it's 1,487 square feet. We would ask the board to deny, of course, the side setbacks. You'll hear more about that, but we have a house that is on the property line here. And this house to the other side is less than 2 feet from the property line. So we think that that really needs to be thought out again and maybe best addressed at the level of the Board of Architecture Review, which gentleman said that they do plan to go to. And I address that because it says that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions. Well, number 3 Henrietta is there. It has a less footprint. And so we don't think that test is met. We mentioned earlier that the heated square footage that they're proposing is 2,942 square feet. So across the street, you have a 3-bedroom house. And what they're proposing is 4 bedrooms with flex space for 2 more bedrooms, which is 6 bedrooms. And they're asking for parking variance. Now, I think that those of you on this board familiar with the term rocket house, which the Board of Architectural Review has traditionally said, we don't want rocket houses. This house is 27 feet tall here. This one is almost 40. This house is 30. Across the street, this house is 30. So you can see this will be one area where at the Board of Architectural Review, I think particularly, they're not going to allow a rocket house to be built in there. Now, I know that this is a difficult challenge to get the kind of square footage you want. We obviously concerned that somebody's going to buy this house and it's going to become a college rental, not a family home, because there's really not much yard left. There's very little parking. And as Mr. Somerville pointed out, the majority of our street is commercial because of the church, the Dewberry Hotel. So the length of the parking is really just those 4 houses. Down the street, there are parking meters, or it's actually no parking allowed. I'd like to, well, I guess I should say that I misspoke. This house is 17 feet higher than this house. It's 10 feet higher than this, 10 feet higher than this. So I know I'm speaking to things that maybe will be addressed at the BAR for sure. But I think what we have here is trying to shoehorn a lot of square footage where it doesn't need to be. If you look around our neighborhood, and I should have started off saying, I've been in this neighborhood for 30 years. I know every street, I know every house. If you go around Elizabeth Street, the gentleman who just spoke, all of those houses have narrow lots. They do not have a third floor. There are no dormers. You see here, there are no dormers. Here, 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 here. There are no dormers. No third floors. To summarize, we'd like to ask the board to help our neighborhood. We ask you to deny the exceptions and variances and ask the applicant to meet with at staff level with the BAR. We hope to meet with the applicant in our neighborhood to be part of that process if they will let us. And once these steps have been taken, they can come back to you and ask for variances if needed. But I think it's premature to approve an envelope when somebody surely is trying to exceed any reasonable house plan in this neighborhood. And we look forward to working with the applicant to hope that can happen.
Mr. Willis, question for you very quickly before get comfortable again in your seat. Does the association or do you personally oppose the special exception to allow them to build something? In other words, a lot is unbuildable under our current zoning ordinance with respect to the size
We
of the
would not
lot.
oppose that, of course.
Okay, just
Yes, because
that.
because the
without
house I
anything
just
else.
showed you
Yeah,
at number 3 Henrietta, which
Sure.
I'm saying is very comparable, yet it has a smaller lot. And we realize and appreciate the fact that it is a lot. It deserves to have something on it. We wish that it had been combined with the other house, but that's not me, it's not mine.
right.
But no, we would not, I'm just suggesting we do it all at once. And we would certainly support and not couldn't get in the way of having somebody having a lot and not being able to build on it.
Okay.
We hope to work with them and have something really lovely.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
How are you this evening?
Pretty good.
Good, getting late. Hi, John Farrell. I live at 5 Henrietta, right across the street. And so there are so many things wrong with this application, it's hard to know where to start. Height, scale, mass, you know, it looks like a cross between a rocket ship and a billboard. I mean, it's just out of character. There's no way the BAR is going to approve this. The real question is, how are you going to position the house? And you really don't know until you talk to the BAR. If they want it all the way up to the street, then that's going to dictate the parking along the left-hand side, and that's where that 7-foot setback is. If they say, you know, we will allow you to take the house and step it back so you can get 2 cars in front, that's going to solve the parking. So you really need to go in front of the BAR before you come here. The proposed house is a 4 to 6 bedroom house with only 1 parking space. Also, the parking space conflicts with the storm drain, as he pointed out. The other thing, though, is that there are only 3 parking places in front, and that's going to eliminate one of the on-street parking places if you put the parking place there. The 3-foot, talk about the setbacks. They want to go, as the code says, basically a 3 and a 7, and they would like to go basically a 3 and 3. Well, do you realize how close that other house is, basically with the eave protection? And the other one, the eaves will basically be touching. Okay, so there's not enough room to do that. Basically, they're trying to put, 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. They're trying to maximize their profits, which they should do, but they're doing it at the expense of neighborhood livability. Having 4 to 6 bedrooms with up to 10, 12 additional cars, which you can't fit them on the street, is not really favorable to the neighborhood. So I recommend that the BZA defer this application so they can go through the BAR process, at least through staff level, so they know where to position the house. And then it'll become clear where the variances need to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else who'd like to speak in opposition? Yes, we've got a couple, just.
I'm Todd Magro. I'm at 11 Elizabeth Street. The applicant in his previous application at Race in America, Race and Ashley, spoke a lot about respecting the historic fabric of the neighborhood. If you go back to what was historically here on this property, it was a modest 2-story Charleston single. You can find pictures of it. When I purchased my property, I assumed that there would be another home built on this vacant lot, but it would be something similar to that modest 2-story Charleston single. I never thought that somebody would try to wedge a 4 to 6 bedroom college rental on this property. So I think the applicant should come to the neighborhood association, work with us to find something that does respect the historic boundary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. All right.
Members of the board, my name is David Gross. My wife Victoria is here and my son Hugo is here. As just a matter of context, we've lived in the neighborhood for 40 years, 10 more than Fred.
Too old.
Hugo grew up in our house at Charlotte Street, and we've owned 6 Henrietta, which is the house adjacent to the proposed project. Which is, oh, sorry, which is property here. We also, it's also 6 and 8 Henrietta, which is not unlike the 2 properties owned by the person presenting tonight. We've owned the house for 20 years. Hugo owns it along with us. We all 3 own it, and we have plans for the future for it. But I would like to address a few things here. I've written this, pre-written this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. As I said before, I'm here on behalf of my family, Victoria and Hugo. We joined the property under consideration, and we appreciate the chance to share our perspective. We were not approached by the applicant, and so we've not had a chance to discuss the proposal with them. We would appreciate that opportunity in the future if that's possible. We've owned the house for 20 years. We lived to 40. We share together. Victoria and I have a long-term plan to move into this property when we get much older. And Hugo will be in our house, perhaps a little bigger. Get a family, hopefully. But anyway, we have long-term plans to keep the property and live in the property. We would have the opportunity to develop it like because we have 2 lots, but we don't plan to do that because we're invested in the neighborhood for many years. We share many of the concerns already expressed by our neighbors. I don't want to comment on the design of the proposed structure. We agree with everyone who's spoken before, but I believe your purview is to set a parameter for the site design. That's what I wanted to address. The site design, they're requesting, I don't think they're requesting a variance for the parking in front, but that would be consistent with our property, which has parking here. Our property is 2 units, and we have 4 parking spaces here. This property, if it would be consistent with us, sorry, you can go back to that. This is our house, and this is our lot. This is their proposed lot. Same dimensions. We have parking here, and They're not asking for an exception, but they are asking for an exemption for the side setbacks. And so I will address that. I have some photos here of our house. I don't know if I can show this very well, but this is ours is the paper coral, and proposed lot is the one with the dumpster.
Are these all the same photograph, Mr. Gross?
Approximately within I think one has a fence, and the other does. As you can see on the photos, we have second floor windows which act as egress. If there's a fire in our house, it's quite a wide house. As you can see, it's 3 bays. If there's a fire on the
And
side.
is this the house, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Gross, is this the house that Mr. Willis was mentioning was built on the lot line, is
Yes,
that correct?
yes, we're on the
Okay.
lot line.
And that's your house that you own?
This is our house.
Okay, got
This
it.
is the lot line, and if you do the mathematics, they didn't actually spell it out, but it ends up being approximately 4 foot long here, creating a 4 foot setback where 7 foot is required. I did a little research, and apparently the reasoning behind the 7 foot setback is for safety, for basically firemen to be able to get in there. And so by creating a 4 foot setback, you're actually putting us at risk. By allowing a 4 foot setback, you're putting us at risk for safety reasons. We have, in the photos you can see, we have egress upstairs, and should there be a fire, which is possible, we wouldn't be able to get out, we wouldn't be able to rescue. And so that is the reason there's a 7 foot setback, is for safety. And by granting this exemption, you're actually going to be creating a hardship for us. So we oppose that. I understand the proposed construction would include a fire rated wall, but that doesn't account for the practical realities of a potential emergency, i.e. our house have a fire. We wouldn't be able to get out. This is not hypothetical. This could actually happen. And also, I don't think they actually present a hardship. I mean, they present an economic hardship, perhaps, but they've recently purchased the lot. They understood the parameters, and so we oppose it on that for that reason as well. I don't think there's a real hardship for that 7 variance. Anyway, thank you for your time and consideration. It's getting late, and I hope that perhaps you disapprove this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Sue Flaster. I live on Chapel Street, where I have lived for 25 years, and I guess I'm a representative of the committee of the Neighborhood Association. And I'd like to add on to what David just said, the issue of hardship. We have watched development in our neighborhood and watched houses being rebuilt, reinvented, changed. Hardship seems to, as often as not, turn into, this is a hardship because I want to do it and it's against the rules. And I don't believe that that really should be considered as hardship. And the other issue, of course, is the parking. There are these variances in the code, and there's a reason for these variances, which is we have narrow streets, lots of occupants, and there are not that many places to park. And if the parking requirements are going to be ignored for every project that comes before this board, then you might as well just erase the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else have comments? Yes.
I'm April Wood with Historic Charleston Foundation. And HCF has reviewed the application for 2 special exceptions and 2 variance requests to develop 14 Henrietta Street. In general, we believe the applicant is proposing a project that is too large for the site and is not compatible with its context or with the historic neighborhood. Regarding the request for a special exception from section 54-501 to build on a lot of insufficient size, we note that the lot at 4 Henrietta is actually larger than some of the surrounding parcels, including number 2 and 3 Henrietta and 13 Elizabeth Street, all of which have residential structures on them. While there may be some hardship due to the narrow width of the property and the setback requirements, we strongly believe that the proposed 2,942 square foot structure is unnecessarily large and is asking too much from the BZA with setbacks. We also do not believe the applicant meets the hardship test because of hardship test number 4. We believe that authorization of a variance would be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties and to the public good, and the character of the district will be harmed by the granting of the variance because the proposed building is too large and will negatively impact the adjacent properties and the historic character of the district. We respectfully ask the board to deny the special exception and variance requests. We suggest that the applicant should obtain guidance from the BAR and the Garden District Neighborhood Association to reduce the scale of the proposed building to a size that would be compatible and acceptable to the neighborhood.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wood. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Julia Armstrong, and I am a very new member of the Garden District. I bought a house just about a year ago and have been renovating it. So I've just gone through this, I am going through this process. Last year I was 26 and this year I no longer am. At any rate, I think you spoke it perfectly when you said, is it reasonable? I think putting a 2,900 square foot house in a lot of insufficient size without asking for community involvement or input, or wondering how it might impact the fabric of the neighborhood is not reasonable. And I just think that that is sort of the bottom line here. What really needs to be considered is how it's going to affect the neighborhood. When I came into the neighborhood, that was one of my first thoughts. What am I going to do to the house? And I want to live in it and make it a nice house, but I also want to do it with respect to my new neighbors. And I think that would be a good way to go about this.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. All right, anybody else have any comments on this application?
Oh, come on.
All right. Looks like everybody who has spoken in opposition has spoken. Mr. Adrian, you thought the last one was hard.
If you can leave it right there. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. I will try to keep it quick and maybe redirect back to what the variances requested is. There's been a lot of talk about houses on smaller lots and you know, they're 1,400 or 1,700 square feet. 3 Henrietta was referenced many times. So I think this is a great illustration of what's going on. So if you look at 3 Henrietta and you look at this property line and this property line, what do you have for setbacks? You've got maybe a foot on the left, maybe a foot and a half on the right. So if the required setbacks for this zoning district were applied to that, there's a variance. The adjacent neighbor, his house sitting on the property line, you know, has lots of room to the left, double lot, short, but your house is put on the property line. We have multiple, there's so many properties in Charleston where houses are a foot apart or even closer, joined different, you know, there's party walls and fire walls, and our design certainly would accomplish and provide all of those things. There are code restrictions as to what you can do on a wall that's less than 5 feet for openings and all those things. But I believe that the whole meeting, this whole application has been thrown off because of the presented plan that was there. There was so much speculation about 4 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms. You know, we're being upfront with what we're presenting. There is a long battle ahead with BAR, but that battle doesn't start until we can get our site plan in order. And the only way to do that, if the variances are adhered, or the setbacks are adhered to strictly here, then you're trying to create a house with porch and square footage and 16 feet of width. And it's going to require length. And so then it just isn't, it's not gonna happen. If the idea is, hey, we can't have 2.5 stories from BAR, then that's gonna push the house down, widen the house out. We were intentional about trying to create backyard for the single family that the house is being designed for. It's not being designed as a dormitory. And so I just want to redirect that our request, first off, everybody is saying, you know, should even improve the special exception to develop an undersized lot. I think that's unreasonable. I don't think that, and I know that presented elevations won't be the final elevations. That I can guarantee. So the request would be for you to redirect and look at what is necessary to build. I believe that we have shown hardship. I believe that this drawing explains exactly, if you look at all these properties, look at 13 and the setbacks that are on 13, and let's look at the square footage of that. Let's look at the inaccuracies that were also brought up. Mine has dormers, there are houses, there are structures that are taller. Ours will end up coming down, I'm certain of that. But I do believe that the first starting point is saying, yes, if we provide a 3-foot setback versus 7, that's a good place to begin. And let's move through that, and then we'll work through design.
All right, thank you, Mr. Adrian. You know, you've appeared before this board a number of times, and always do an excellent job, and you're well prepared. So thank you for your presentation. Go ahead.
So I guess also if you were to deny everything, then is what I have to appeal the special exception for the use.
Well, let's get there when we get there. Let's see what happens here. And because I didn't hear much of an objection from anybody about allowing.
We can, miss another elephant, we can eat one bite at a time. We can, I would move to grant the special exception, the first special exception, to build a single family residence on a lot of insufficient size.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, okay. So you're gonna move, that's
Yes.
a motion. All right, Mr. Morrison has moved for the special exception under section 54, 501 to build a single family residence on a lot of insufficient size. Mr. McKay has seconded that motion. Any discussion, or we're ready to vote? We're ready to vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. So that motion passes. So the special exception is granted. You can build something on there. Now, what
And I
it
would
is, I don't
move
know.
to defer the rest of the application and require the applicant to go back and confer with the neighborhood about the entire property.
All right, is there a second on that motion? All right, Ms. Grass seconds that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The rest is deferred. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry it took so long.
And to be clear, we struck the lot area part of the variance. And sir, we gotta keep your pictures, because you submitted them for the record, so. Thank you.
Is this not a reality?
Not a pickup.
This is not a picture.